David, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is David Saunders. I'm a director at a company called Briter Bridges. We map innovation and investment ecosystems in emerging markets. And I'm here because we have a program with the Gates Foundation and FCAO focusing on innovation and investment in ag tech in Africa, South and Southeast Asia.
And we just had a really interesting sideways chat about what's going on in Africa. That was the other thing I did say. In Nigeria, by 2050, isn't every two out of every 10 babies born in the world will be born in Nigeria? So you've got that level of population increase. So tech, AI, is that going to help feed Africa?
Well, I mean, the MasterCard Foundation did interesting research where I think it was 1 out of every 5 adults that will enter the workforce by 2050 will be coming from Africa. So you also have this, huge demographic opportunity, but also demographic risk. So it's how are you going to employ people? How are you going to feed them? All those questions. And I think, what we were just speaking about is, AI is getting a lot of the hype around, the events that we're participating in here. There's a lot of excitement. But when we look at the type of ag tech solutions that are needed in Africa, or just agricultural solutions, it's a lot of just back to the basics. It's around infrastructure, logistics, processing, where a lot of the upside can come from.
Yeah, because I always remember you said about living in Cape Town. South Africa produces 3.5 million tons worth of fresh produce that's exported, and there's another 4 million, I think, that then goes into the market within Africa. But for those that don't know, Africa's not a small place. It is. Well, it's a bit like America. It's four different countries. It's only different countries, but it's such a big continent, and as such, it's so complex.
And I mean, we're doing some work right now with a very big ag tech investor from South Asia, Omnivore. And we always say there's no such thing as an Africa strategy. There's a Kenya strategy, there's a South Africa strategy, there's a Morocco strategy. And the markets are so different. One of the things like you're saying in South Africa that I'm always surprised by is better bangos from South Africa and the UK than you do in South Africa. And that's the story for most of Africa as well, that export value chains as well. So whereas I think a lot of the solutions that we see funding trying to go to are trying to solve domestic food production. And I think, like you were saying, that's the real challenge that I think innovation investment is trying to solve.
Yeah. So we both have a love of Africa. How can we fix it? Or is it just we've just got to feel our way on this? And if things like AI come along and we can experiment with it, see if it works, is this just an ongoing thing? Or am I being very naive thinking you can wave out a magic wand and fix it?
No, I think you're right. I don't think there's one size-fits-all solution to kind of any of this. It's interesting. So having spent 12 years in South Africa, the last few years in Kenya, traveling most around the continent as well, I don't think that there's any silver bullet as much as kind of the development community or investors get excited about. But I do think all those silver bullets do add up over time, like M-Pesa in Kenya. We're just talking about mobile phones, being able to make payments. Now on the back of that, sure, not everybody has a smartphone. Sure, AI is not solving everything. But there will be a world in which you can take a picture of your crops and say, hey, what should I do with this? Because it's not necessarily having the outcome I want. I think there's a lot more local capital that needs to come into the game. So we were just also saying, why are so many local investors sitting on the sideline? Why is so much money coming from DFIs and donors? And I think the current change we're seeing in the world with the pressure Northern Hemisphere countries are on to deliver aid is forcing local investors to step up, local funders. And I actually think that's going to be a very, very good thing. And you're going to see a lot more local solutions, local funding. And there may be something around that has just as big of an impact as the experimentation with AI.
Well done. And the likes of communications, when I've been through Africa, you get 3G everywhere. And I think today, if you and I went on a road trip from the top, from Mauritania all the way down, it's probably going to be virtually tarred all the way now. So that infrastructure is there.
And I mean, your point around connectivity, right? I get better cell phone reception in rural Kenya than I do in rural UK. So you have that leapfrogging potential as well. How can we, and I think that's why I'm saying it's not going to be any one thing. It's going to be learning from what's already been developed and kind of transferring that. It's going to be mobilizing local funding, but all this stuff is going to take a lot of time. I think one of the sessions earlier today that I really resonated with was the Norwegian investment manager who represents the oil and gas funds that they make as part of the government. He was saying, he's no longer looking just at the solution or type of solution. He's looking at companies that can be around for 10, 15, 20 years. And when I look at the type of companies that are having impact in agriculture, finance, they're those types of companies. And so I think to some extent, funders need to change their appetite for how long they should be investing in these. And the second thing is we shouldn't just be focused on a silver bullet. We should be focusing on how do we build businesses that are going to be around in 15, 20, 30 years, because those are the ones we see scale, those are the ones we see have impact.
And those businesses that do that scale, collaboration, just on the network that we've got here, how can we help you? Who would you be looking to collaborate with?
Well, I mean, it's been super interesting to be here because I kind of came because we're partnering with the event in Dubai, and I was thinking, okay, that's the emerging markets event as well. But since I've been here, I've been having conversations with fertilizer corporates that are interested in Africa, right? VCs and investors that are interested, startups that are looking at it as opportunities as well. So I think this whole kind of coordination between the types of partners we work with, like the Gates Foundation and others, the corporates like Bayer and others, the startups like we've been talking about, the fertilizer companies, all of that coordination and collaboration I think is going to be so critical. And I want to see, what I'd love to see in the future is more local African startups here, more African corporates here as well, coming to this kind of world event to see how we can kind of bridge that gap as well.
Fantastic, because I haven't seen any today. And
no,
that's a really good
there's
point.
one that I saw. Well, it's like Maiden, which is Saudi Arabia and Riyadh. That's maybe the closest. One ag tech company was supposed to be here from Africa, Mazo Hub, shout out, they just raised funding, they're doing really great. They didn't come to the pitch event, and I was like, okay, like that would be a really interesting thing for us to think about. So it's like, how do we bring these two spaces together? Because to your point at the beginning, it's going to be, one way or another, it's going to make more noise in the future. It's going to be there. So, making this connection now, I think is going to be valuable.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cool.
You learned a lot, thank you.
Cool.